Morning, everyone. Fantastic to be together. We've got such an important topic this morning that I think it'd be good to pray again. So why don't you pray with me and ask God for God's help. Oh Lord, please help us this morning. Please help me to speak truthfully. Please enable us to hear clearly, and please help us to respond rightly. And we ask this in Jesus' name. Amen. Have you seen this video clip, YouTube or whatever? It's a wakeboarding video clip. Actually, there's a few of them. I'm getting a lot of boom here, so I'm not sure if that's just down the front. Thanks. I'm not sure. There's a few of them, so I'm not sure whether it's all staged, but it's a video clip of someone wakeboarding, and the camera's mounted at the front and it's looking out the back of the boat, and out the back of the boat someone's wakeboarding and there's the driver. The driver gets him up on the plane and then he turns, cracks a beer, walks to give it to the person wakeboarding behind the boat, slips and falls off the boat. The wakeboarder sort of looks panicked for a moment, but to their credit, sort of stabilises, and then starts slowly pulling themselves in by the ski rope, only to get the death wobbles and fall off. And now the boat is shooting along with no one on the boat. No one able to do anything. Just hurtling along, and you're just looking out the back at this beautiful open water, this beautiful wake, and you know pretty soon the boat's going to run out of lake and it's going to end in disaster, and you think, oh, what could be worse? Well, I guess if the boat was on fire, that could be worse. Now, that's often how our world feels, isn't it? Driverless, like there's no one at the wheel, like it's out of control, on fire, hurtling towards some sort of devastating end. At least this is how our community is feeling. To create this series of Bible talks, we asked the community the question, what do you think people are finding hard in life? What are people finding it hard to deal with in life? We surveyed our families, we surveyed our friends, and many people indicated that they were feeling that our world is out of control and moving in dangerous directions. Because we live in a world that's obviously filled with very large, serious, worrying and difficult problems. Problems so complex and vast that it often seems very impossible to solve. When we decided the titles for these talks, using the information from the surveys, a draft title for this talk was "The Difference Jesus Makes When Life Feels Like It's Unravelling." When life feels like it's unravelling. Now the title we ended up with is better and clearer, but that's a powerful image, isn't it? Unravelling, like a ball of string that you're carrying along, once tight, ordered, bound, but you drop it and it bounces down the stairs, unravels and tangles up, and it's impossible to wind back together. That's how people are often feeling about life when it comes to thinking about our world. Like the world is a dropped ball of string, unravelling, coming apart, going everywhere, tangling up, and no one seems to be able to wind it back together. In answer to the survey question, what do you think people are finding hard to deal with in life? People mention things like war, conflict, violence, political turmoil, unrest, wide-scale loss of life, Russia, Ukraine, Israel, Palestine, Venezuela, Iran. People mention the problems of inequality, economic inequality, the haves, the have-nots, anxiety over the state of the environment, concerns over political division and increasing polarisation between political parties and between political convictions, so much so that it seems almost impossible for certain groups to even talk to each other about differences of political opinion. In fact, some people are even killed because it's not liked what they say. Gun violence in our country, religious violence in our country, in the US, domestic troops deployed on domestic ground. A number of people surveyed particularly mentioned the fear of technology and its impact on our society, particularly on our kids. So the impact of social media, the anxiety it produces, the bullying, the polarising influence of algorithms, the addiction to screens and its impact upon mental health, upon motivation. Some are worried about Orwellian surveillance and the policing of freedom of speech. Others, not enough being done to crack down on hate speech. Add to this the consistent personal trauma, violence, tragedy, abuse that's occurring in our world all over the place all the time. And so you can see how this makes people very anxious and also often angry at the same time. It can feel like our world is that boat. It's on fire, there's no one at the wheel, it's hurtling towards shore at a terrible speed. And so the obvious question is, who's going to fix it? Who's going to step up and make a difference and actually fix our out-of-control world? The problem is, even as you ask that question, I think, if you're honest like me, you think, no one. There's no one going to come and save us. There's no cavalry coming. We might imagine that someone will, particularly if we're young and idealistic. We may think, surely the politicians will fix it if we can just elect the right politicians in. Or the great minds will fix it, the entrepreneurs, the Elon Musks or the Bill Gates, they'll step up or maybe a great global organisation like the WEF or the UN or maybe the great educators who can educate the next generation better, and they'll be the ones to solve it. And yet, none of those things have gone anywhere near fixing the problems of our world yet. And maybe you feel like, I know who'll fix it, I'll know who'll fix it, me. If you just gave me the power, I'd step up, I've got all the solutions, just do this, this, this and this, and it's all going to be okay. Now, can I humbly say, gently say, you probably have some brilliant thoughts, you probably have some great ideas, but are you really going to be the one who fixes the world's problems when no one in all the history of mankind has been able to? Or maybe we have this just idealistic notion that the next generation, they're so young and so smart and so energetic and they have such a sharp moral compass, they're going to step up and fix it. But isn't it the case that every generation thinks, yes, we're going to be the ones to fix it? Step aside, oldies, you've got no idea because we're the ones who... And yet every generation has just made different variations on the same mistakes. Surely someone will fix it, but reality is no one in our world has ever been able to fix it, and I want to suggest, darkly, no one ever will be able to. Because to really make a difference in our world, to actually fix the entrenched problems of the world, we need someone who is powerful enough, good enough, and wise enough. And I want to suggest that no one is. For a start, there's no one powerful enough. Our world is so vast and so complex, and the problems of our world are so huge, and there are so many competing powers in our world that there is no one who truly has the awesome power that is required to step up and fix the whole thing. Now, some people have a lot of power and they can make a significant difference. And sometimes that difference is made for good, though sometimes it's made for ill. But even the most powerful only make a very limited impact because their power is so limited. There is no human in our world powerful enough to fix it. Add to this something even more tragic and worrying. There is no human good enough to fix our world. Do this mental experiment with me. If you could somehow gather all the power, vast power of the world into one place, or at least enough power where someone could actually fix the world, and then you took all that power and you gave it to one person, or you gave it to one group of people, who are you entrusting that power to? Who would you entrust that sort of power to? Can you think of anyone? Is there anyone you would give that power to? If there was a human being who had enough power to fix our world, it would be a terrifying thing because there is no one in our world good enough to be entrusted with that sort of power. Unlimited power in the hands of a human being is unlimited opportunity for evil because that's what happens when you give power to humans. So often what they do is they use the power for themselves, for their people, for their tribe. So often the ones who get enough power to make the difference to actually fix some things become corrupt and power-hungry and oppressive. Or they start with very good intentions, very good motives to help others. But as they start to move forward in trying to fulfill and roll out those good intentions, they start to silence and oppress anyone who gets in the way of the good intentions. It's the case when people have real power that we actually need to worry, which is why we love democracy, isn't it? It limits the power that any one person can hold or any one group of people can hold, and we are able to elect them out when they're not doing a good job. Democracy is a comfort when you look at our politicians, because whoever they are, whichever party they are, pretty soon you realise, they're just as bad as the last mob. In fact, I think they're just as flawed as me. Actually, I think they're worse than me. This is why we feel so uneasy when the great billionaire entrepreneurs start making decisions well beyond the scope of their businesses, decisions that impact countries, impact even the world's populations. Because just because you're rich and smart and powerful, it does not mean you're good. And history teaches us over and over again that when people get a lot of power, it very often turns out very badly. I had a teacher in high school called Mr. J, a history teacher, great history teacher. And he loved this quote by Lord Acton, a very famous quote. You probably know it. The amount of times that Mr. J said this quote: "Power tends to corrupt, and absolute power corrupts absolutely." So often true, not always in every case, but 9 times out of 10, power tends to corrupt and absolute power corrupts absolutely. If you could entrust a human being with enough power to fix this world, the problems facing our world, which human would you entrust that power to? I suggest no one, because there is no one good enough, moral enough to be entrusted with such vast power. Add to this the final nail in the coffin. There's no one powerful enough, there's no one good enough, but there's also no one wise enough. The problems facing our world are just so complex that the solutions needed are so often beyond our ability to discern. Have you noticed that so often the solutions that wise people in power put in place seem idiotic to the rest of us? Or the solutions that the powerful implement have these unforeseen consequences that tend up just as bad or sometimes even worse than the problem they were trying to fix? Once me and my mates, we were just out of school. We're doing a working bee together on this house. We didn't know much about what you do in a working bee, but we were told, clear the garden. We cleared the garden. We were told, paint this thing. We were shown how to paint the outside of the house. But in the process of painting the outside of the house, we came across this huge nest of wasps. And so we couldn't paint the area unless we got rid of the nest of wasps. And so we had this bright idea. Let's throw paint thinner over it and light it. Yeah. You throw the thinner, I'll light it really quick. 1, 2, 3. Perfect timing. The wasp nest burst into flame, and then the whole window, the whole side of the house, the grass under the window, the whole thing was burning. What seemed like a brilliant solution to an 18-year-old boy had a very significant unforeseen consequence, possibly burning down the house. Now we got it out, it's all okay. The house was just a bit black and sooty, and I don't know why we never got asked back to do future working bees. Unforeseen consequences. We just thought we were so clever. We had such a good solution to this problem, but the solution was a stupid solution because it had these unforeseen consequences. Now you think, you're an idiot. You were young idiots. It was a simple problem. There are other simple solutions. But we were so young and stupid, we couldn't see the obvious other solutions or the obvious unforeseen consequences. But expand it bigger. Isn't it that our politicians and people in power are seeing this happen all the time? Because the problems they're trying to fix are big problems. And the solutions are difficult to come by. And when they do come by these solutions, they often have serious unforeseen consequences. Because the problems they're trying to solve are so big, complex, mired in generational politics, tribal hatreds, this bramble bush of complex history and relationships and political views. And so, despite how clever their solutions are, they often have worse impacts. We try to fix one problem we've created for the environment, only to create another one. We try to fix one medical problem, reduce deaths, but in doing that, we end up with unforeseen complications where more people die from other factors that we didn't adequately consider. A nation wants to bring peace by invading another smaller country, and so they do, and the whole region bursts into war. A government quickly votes a law in to achieve a quick political fix, and 2 years down the track, that law causes chaos. So many of our problems are so big and complex and intractable that no human has the wisdom to work them out. And history teaches us again and again and again this truth: no human is coming to save the day. No one is coming to fix our world because there's no one powerful enough, no one good enough, no one wise enough. And so the big question this morning is, what about Jesus? Where all others have failed, can Jesus make a difference and fix our out-of-control world? Now, it obviously depends on who Jesus is, isn't it? For instance, if Jesus is make-believe, like the Easter Bunny, like a fairy tale, he cannot make 1 ounce of difference. If Jesus is something that people have conjured up to feel better about this life and after this life, then he has absolutely nothing to offer us. It's not real. But if Jesus was a real person, but a normal person, but myth and legend has grown around him over time, and people have come to think of him as more than a normal person, a divine person, but he was really just a normal bloke, and it's really just myth and legend. Again, Jesus can't help us. Or if Jesus was a liar, he's not making any difference. If Jesus came claiming to be the Son of God, which he did, if that's true, wow, he probably can make a real difference. But if he lied about that, he's just a normal person who is a liar. He was not God come amongst us, then he can make no difference. Or maybe not a liar, but a lunatic, deluded, really thought he was God, but was not, and so, again, nothing to offer. Even if Jesus was a great moral teacher, a religious guru who taught profound and wonderful things, but he's not any more than that, he may have some impact on our world, some influence as people listen to his teaching and apply those teachings, but a small impact. Can Jesus make a difference in our out-of-control world? Well, it depends totally on who he is. And so the question now is, who is he? Well, to see who Jesus is, come with me to the source. This is a bit of the Bible that you have in front of you on your sheets, the bit that was read for us. It's an historic account of an episode in Jesus' life written by a medical doctor called Luke. A little bit of a piece that comes from a compilation of eyewitness accounts of Jesus' life. And so what you have in your hands before you is a record of what actually took place over 2,000 years ago. And in this little bit of the Bible on your sheet, what you see in this passage is Jesus engaging with people who are experiencing the chaos of life at its worst. Jesus coming into contact with people who are at the sharp end of this out-of-control world. People who are facing the death of someone they love dearly. And as we see how Jesus interacts with these people and the tragedy and chaos of the world in this situation, what we will see is something of who he is and what he's come to do. And so from this event in Jesus' life, who is he? Well, the first thing that we see is Jesus is the one who is powerful enough to fix everything. In this event, we get a little glimpse of the infinite power of Jesus. Look with me. Jesus approached the town called Nain, a small town in Galilee, Israel. You can go there today if you want to. So we're talking about real people, real places, real history. Jesus entered the town with his disciples. There was a large crowd following along with him because he'd been saying so many incredible things, doing so many incredible things that there's this crowd with him. But as they approached the gate, coming into the town, out of the town was a funeral procession. A funeral bier was being carried with a dead man on top. And we have closed coffins these days. They'd have maybe a plank of wood or a long wicker basket, and the dead body was placed on top, usually wrapped or covered. And so a dead man is being carried outside the town to be buried. And we learned that the dead man was a young man, the only son of a widow. His mother had previously lost her husband and now had lost her only son. And Luke, the author, tells us that Jesus' heart went out to her. And so Jesus went over and touched the bier holding the dead man, and the whole funeral procession stopped. Now, can you imagine that? Can you imagine something like that happening at a funeral today? You're at the crematorium, you're at the church, everyone is gathered. The coffin comes in, being wheeled by the family members towards the front. The service is about to start. Everyone's watching the coffin. It's being wheeled towards the front. And then someone steps out, steps up, steps in front of the coffin, places their hand on the coffin, and the whole thing stops. Can you imagine that? That's Jesus. Stops the funeral procession. You think, what sort of person would do that? Well, the sort of person who's able to do verse 14. See there in the middle of your sheets? Then he went up and touched the bier they were carrying him on, and the bearers stood still. He said, "Young man, I say to you, get up." The dead man sat up and began to talk, and Jesus gave him back to his mother. Jesus spoke to the dead man, and the dead man got up. And this wasn't the only time that Jesus raised the dead back to life. He did this on a number of occasions in his life, the most famous being when Jesus raised his good friend Lazarus back to life after Lazarus had been dead in the tomb 4 days. So long in the tomb that people said, "Don't open the tomb, he stinks. Don't open the tomb." Every time Jesus went to a funeral, he interrupts the funeral and raises the deceased back to life. Now, can you imagine that? I would have given just about anything for someone to turn up to my dad's funeral, to have touched his coffin and said, "Get up," and for my dad to have come back to life. Think of those you've lost. Imagine that. But no one has the power except Jesus. And the people in verse 16, it says, are filled with awe and praise God and think, Jesus is someone great, a prophet, someone sent from God, true but not big enough. And the news about Jesus obviously spreads all around the region. From this account from Jesus' life, who is Jesus? He's the one with the power, enough power, that he has power over death. And in the passage in the Bible that follows the one on your sheets, which you don't have on your sheets, unfortunately, on behalf of John the Baptist, John's disciples come to Jesus. John's in prison. And they ask Jesus this question, "Are you really the great king sent from God, or should we expect someone else?" And Jesus answers, "Go tell John what you've seen and heard. The blind receive their sight, the lame walk, those who have leprosy are cured, the deaf hear, the dead are raised, and the good news is preached to the poor. See what Jesus says? You can see I am the great king. You can see I am the ruler of everything by my actions. The ruler come to fix the world and make everything right. The ruler promised centuries before, the great king, the Messiah. You can see it by my giving the blind sight, making the crippled walk, curing the leprous, healing the deaf, and even raising the dead. Jesus, the ruler, all-powerful over everything. If the account before us is true, is real, is history, if Jesus really can reverse death as recorded here, then what can he not do? Surely he can fix anything, everything, and he can. Because he tells us that he is the creator come to earth, the ruler of all things walking amongst us as a human, the one who has the power to fix absolutely everything. And if there's any doubt left in our minds about whether Jesus has the power to fix everything, we need to look at the end of his life, his resurrection from the dead. Because Jesus' resurrection is magnitudes greater than this young man's resurrection. This young man, raised, will live a normal life, but he will die once again. So it's a temporary raising to life. Miraculous, incredible, powerful, wonderful, but only for this life. But Jesus' resurrection was a rising to life to live forevermore, to never die again. Executed, dead in the tomb 3 days, risen from the grave, never to die again. Jesus' resurrection declares to the universe, Jesus has the power to fix everything. In fact, Jesus' resurrection from the dead is the first bit of fixing the entire universe. It's the start of the whole new creation. And Jesus promises that one day he will return, and when he returns, he will complete the fixing of the world, fixing absolutely everything. Return in mighty power to strip out all evil and wrong and chaos and anxiety and make everything good and right and pure and safe. Who is Jesus? He's the one powerful enough to fix everything. And he's the one good enough to fix everything. See, imagine the power that Jesus holds if it were in the hands of a tyrant, of a maniac, of a narcissist, of a sociopath. It'd be terrifying. In fact, the power Jesus holds in our hands would be terrifying. We'd misuse it. Any human would. But not Jesus, because he is wonderfully, perfectly, truly good. He is the one who is love, who is compassionate and caring. In this account of Jesus raising the widow's son, you see the character of Jesus on display, don't you? When Jesus saw the funeral procession and sees the people grieving, and particularly sees the young man's mum grieving, in verse 13 it says, when the Lord saw her, his heart went out to her. And he said, don't cry. His heart went out to her. His heart is filled with grief and care and compassion for this woman. He saw her grief and he saw her vulnerability. Because in the ancient world, the most vulnerable person was the widow. Because the wife relied on her husband as her means of support. She had lost her husband and so lost her means of support. Unless you had a son who could now provide for you in the husband's absence. But now her son was dead too. No social security, no safety net, no government welfare, no. And so Jesus saw this woman in her deep grief and vulnerability, and his heart went out to her in love and care and compassion. And out of that love, he raised her boy back to life. And verse 15, gave him back to her. Relationship restored. This is the heart of the ruler of all things, the Lord Jesus. The King of the universe cares. And this is the heart of love and compassion and care that brought Jesus to the earth in the first place. The heart of care by which he came into our world to save us from this broken world by saving us from our broken relationship with God. You see, the thing that has made our world the way it is, busted, chaotic, frightening, the thing that has brought sickness and disease and tragedy and accidents and warfare and death into our world is you, me, us. It's humanity's evil that has destroyed our world. And not just our evil in how we treat our fellow human beings, though that is definitely stuffed things up. But far more profoundly, our evil in rejecting God from our lives. How as a race, how as every individual, we have pushed God from our lives so that we can live without him, so that we can live our own life without him sticking his nose into our business. And as humans, we don't think it's that bad. which is testimony to how bad it is that we've thrown off his rule. But to reject the Creator, the one who gives us life and breath and health and everything we have, is so terribly bad. It's shattered our relationship with God, damaged our relationships with each other, broken the whole created order so that now suffering, tragedy, chaos and death are part of this world. That's how serious it is that we've rejected God. When I was a kid, we had this thing called a Kamado pot. There's this huge ceramic Weber. It was about this high and it was round, and you could lift the whole top up. You lit a fire down the bottom, and then up the top you'd cook your meat. One day when it wasn't on, I was sort of swinging on this pot, and the whole thing tipped, shattered into about 50 pieces. And I knew I was going to get a lot of trouble, so I ran away up the back and climbed up the climbing frame thing, and I did get in a lot of trouble. But my dad, after a while, thought, I'm going to fix it. And so he got this ceramic sort of glue type stuff, cement type stuff, and he pieced the jigsaw puzzle back together. And it sat in our house for the next 20 years in all its ugliness. This sort of orange-green thing, but patched together with all these cracks of white. And when you cooked anything in it, it just tasted like chemicals. But in some sense, it was still together and functioned. That's our world. That's our world. You throw off the Creator, as we've done, and the world shatters. But God, by his goodness, still in some measure holds it together so that it bears some similarity to what it was created to be. And so we still see some of the beauty and some of the purpose and some of the wonder of the world. And yet we also experience the brokenness because it's not what it was made to be. Fallen, shattered, broken. This is why our world feels like that boat on fire shooting along driverless with no one at the wheel. Now there is a driver. God is in control. But because we've rejected him, he's let us go our own way. And so let the boat be on fire. Let the boat feel driverless to show how much danger we are in without him. And all this is why you cannot trust a human being with power, because every human, you and me included, had this bent away from God, away from what is good, towards what is selfish, but not Jesus. In his perfect love and compassion and care, he steps into this broken world to save us by fixing this broken world, by fixing our relationship with God, which is the very core, the thing that will enable the world to be fixed. Perfect goodness drove him to come to fix everything, even though it cost him so greatly. Who is Jesus? The one powerful enough to fix everything, the one good enough to fix everything, and the one wise enough to fix everything. Because unlike any other person, Jesus is wise enough. Wise enough to know you don't just throw together some knee-jerk policy and think it's going to work, especially one that's going to have significant unintended consequences. He's wise enough to know you don't just do the thing that makes you popular. You don't just do the thing that gets you likes or gets you re-elected. He's wise enough to not just make decisions based on limited information. And he's wise enough not to just put in place a short-term solution that has no lasting impact. Jesus is wise enough to know that any solution, no matter how wonderful the solution is, if it only lasted a lifetime, is not a big enough solution. See, in this account on your sheets, Jesus did something wonderfully incredible for this family. Dead man brought back to life. A mother has her son back, her source of security. Jesus radically changed these people's lives and many people's lives with the profound miracles he performed. Wonderfully, radically changed lives. But this was not Jesus' end game. Jesus came to earth to do something far, far, far bigger than this. Because again, remember, this man, this mother had their lives radically, wonderfully changed. But even if they live a long, good, healthy, happy life, eventually they get sick and die again. Jesus' miracle here, powerful and good, but temporary. It only lasted a lifetime. Limited. It only impacted these two people. Limited in this aspect of their lives. Same with all of Jesus' miracles. Powerful, good, amazing. The blind see. The crippled walk. The deaf hear, the dead are raised, healing, sickness, disease, even bringing people back to life. Jesus fixed some of the most terrible problems in the world as he walked on the earth, but they were temporary fixes. All those healed would get sick and die again. Limited fixes. It was only those that Jesus came across and in his compassion healed who were healed. And it only fixed that aspect of their lives because they still lived in the chaos of this world and the chaotic forces at play. And for them, in Judea, the Jewish people were living under Roman occupation, Roman rule. But Jesus in all this was wise enough to know that the miraculous fixes that he brought that changed people's life for just a lifetime were not enough, were not what he ultimately came to do. Jesus actually came to do something far, far bigger. He actually came to bring a solution that fixes the entire universe forever. You see, the miracles that Jesus did in his life on earth are foretastes of what it will ultimately be like when he returns and fixes everything. Jesus' miracles are a glimpse, so a little window that you can look through to see what heaven will be like. In heaven, young men won't die and widows won't lose their sons, because in the new creation there will be no more death. In heaven there'll be no more sadness or sickness or sorrow or pain, no disease or disability, no evil or untruth or injustice, no oppression or violence or warfare, no trauma, no abuse, no broken relationships or broken lives or anxiety or depression, only beauty and goodness and perfection forever. During World War II, one of the most decisive turning points in the war in Western Europe was the Normandy campaign. It was a major turning point in the war where the Allied forces landed on the beaches of Normandy, stormed them and took them. We call it D-Day. Prior to this, the German forces occupied much of continental Europe, but on D-Day, the Allied forces successfully landed, taking a number of beaches, securing a beachhead, and from that beachhead, that foothold, they now had a foothold in Europe from which they could advance. And from that point forward, they did advance, driving forward, defeating the German forces all the way back to Germany. However, it would take almost a year from D-Day to VE Day, Victory in Europe Day. Almost another year of fighting and driving back the German army and liberating the regions that are under German control. Now, can you imagine living in this period from the perspective of someone living in a country in Europe under German control? You've been defeated by the Germans, the country was under their power, enemy forces occupied your land. It was tough. Shortages, danger, constant fear. But then one day an Allied plane flies over and it drops a number of crates on parachutes, and they waft down, land on the ground, food supplies, medical supplies, clothing supplies, chocolate, all the things that you've been lacking all through this time, and printed pamphlets amongst it that say, the Allied forces are coming, hang in there. The pamphlets tell you about the landing at Normandy and that they're advancing in the not too distant future. You'll be liberated as well. Freedom is coming. And so now you have hope, and hope fortified by a taste of liberation, a taste of freedom. The food supplies, the clothing supplies, the medical supplies are a little foretaste of the abundance that you're going to have when the forces come and bring full liberation. That's the miracles of Jesus. A foretaste of the freedom to come in the new creation. A little taste of the perfected universe that awaits those who follow Jesus. A little experience of eternity with Jesus breaking into our world now. Freedom is coming. Do you see, Jesus came to do nothing less than to perfect the entire universe, the entire created order. Make it right. Strip out every ounce of evil and wrong and chaos and make everything good and beautiful and pure and safe. Everything transformed from the very inside out. You and me, every person, all of it through his judgment. We often call it heaven. A whole new creation, a complete fix. Jesus was wise enough to know that in going around the Middle East and healing people and raising people from the dead, it was not job done. This was not the extent of what Jesus came to do. Now, he did his miracles for at least three reasons. Firstly, he just loved people. They were just love. Secondly, he did it to show who he was, the one powerful enough and good enough and wise enough to fix everything. And thirdly, to give a foretaste of what it will ultimately be like when he comes again to fix the entire universe. So can you see that Jesus had a far bigger goal that drove everything he did? A far bigger purpose behind all his teachings and healings and dealings with people. And that big goal, that big purpose was to die. To die in order to fix our relationship with God, and through that to fix the entire universe. And so, even as Jesus brought this young man back to life, he knew that to fix the universe, he would have to give up his life, which is the very reason he came into the world. God the Son ruler of the universe, came into our world, became a man in order to die for you and me. That is how broken our world is. It took God to come to us and die to fix it, to deal with the wrong you and I have done, to deal with our rejection of God, to pay the price for us. Jesus, the Creator, had to come and die to fix it, deal with it, to die in our place. That's what is necessary to fix the entire universe. Who is Jesus? Jesus is the one powerful enough to fix everything, good enough to fix everything, and wise enough to fix everything. And so, I want to suggest the only one who can and will make a difference in our world. The only one who can and will ultimately fix everything. But to finish, I reckon all of this raises the biggest question for all of us, the biggest question for every human. And the question is this: if Jesus really is the one with unlimited power and is perfectly good and is infinitely wise, if Jesus really is the ruler over absolutely everything, if Jesus really is God come to earth to save me, then the big question for us is, what is the only appropriate way for me to respond to him? Well, it's not going to be treat him lightly, treat him flippantly. It cannot be to have him in the background of my life and I just call on him when I'm in trouble, when I need some help. No, if Jesus is the one who he claims to be, the one who he shows himself to be, then the only appropriate response to Jesus is, I bow my whole life before him. He's my ruler. I accept him as my ruler. And I trust him when he says that he died and rose again in love to restore me into a relationship with his Father, with him, and take me to a new creation. Whoever you are, you need to come to terms with who Jesus is, and so respond to him appropriately to who he is. And wonderfully, incredibly, if you do that, accept the ruler of everything as your ruler, accept his death to restore you back into a relationship with God, then Jesus does exactly that. He restores us back into relationship with himself, with his Father. So in this life, God is with us, Jesus is with us, he loves us, he walks with us, he sustains us in the chaos and the pains and the difficulty of this life. And he ultimately takes us to a new perfected universe where we will be with him forever. That's the difference Jesus makes. As you heard Rosie say before, the Life Series kicks off in a week and a half. Now, if something today has been going on for you, or something over the last 4 weeks has been going on for you and you feel compelled, I need to hear more about this Jesus, life is for you. Come, hear more. Get more info, ask questions. Hear others ask questions if you don't want to ask. You might be hearing some of the stuff I'm saying, and I need more convincing that the miracles of Jesus are true. I need more convincing that the resurrection is true. Come to life. You might be thinking, I need more convincing that the Bible is true and accurate, that it's actually real history. Come along to life. We deal with all those sorts of things. It's designed just for you. And today we're going to have prayer down the front. If you want to come and pray for anything, come and get prayer for anything and someone will pray for you. But if today you're feeling stirred by what's going on and you want to hear more about Jesus, you want to pray with someone, come down the front. But let me finish with, again, asking you the big question that this raises for every one of us. If Jesus really is the one with unlimited power, the one who is perfectly good, the one who is infinitely wise, then what is the only appropriate way for you and me to respond to him? Let me pray. Our Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for the Lord Jesus. We thank you that in love he came to fix our world, our universe, the whole creation once and for all. We thank you for his mighty power, for his perfect goodness, for his infinite wisdom. And we thank you that in love he came to die and rise for us, to restore us into a relationship with you for now and forever, and to bring us into a new creation, a perfected universe for all eternity. Father, today, please enable each one of us to take you seriously and seriously consider how we respond to your Son. And we ask all of this in his mighty name. Amen.